am Patrick Reymann, and my title, or actually my practice, recently changed, right? Everything has to have agents in it. So it used to be Research Director, Procurement and Enterprise Applications, and now it's Procurement Applications and Agents, because we all have to be about agents, right? I am from Dayton, Ohio in the US, and Dayton is most well known as the home of the Wright brothers, right? It's where they conceived, designed, developed, and perfected the first powered airplane. A funny story about them. I actually live, I guess Dayton's not really large enough to have suburbs, but a nearby town called Oakwood, which is where I live, and that's where the Wright brothers lived. And the airplane inventing business was good, because after they made it, they built this big mansion in Oakwood, and it's still a popular tourist location. And in our little city, Wilbur Wright donated land to Oakwood so they could build a library, and it exists today, the Wright Memorial Library. And they asked him to serve on the board, and he said, okay, I'll do it on two conditions. I never have to do an interview with the newspaper, and I never will attend a meeting. So I thought that was pretty good. So I'll start with a couple questions for you. I just want to kind of gauge the pulse of the room. And the first question is, do you feel that there is a real tangible value for the application of AI in, I'll just say, your procurement practice? Do you think there's value in that? Okay, not. And so then the second question would be, are you willing to pay a premium to realize that value? Okay, less people. Pricing it dominates my conversations today, and everybody's figuring it out. It's so new, and providers across the board are wrestling with this challenge of there is absolutely a cost to provide AI functionality, yet how do we forecast that cost, right? This is one of the fastest depreciating costs as a class of a service. Every day there's a new and improved model that comes out, and the older models are depreciating so quickly. And that absolutely dominates conversations. And providers that I talk to, they're very relieved when I tell them, you're not alone. Everybody is wrestling with this question of how do we price for that? And from the user's perspective, I accept and get that there is a cost to be paid for that. Yet I need to see the value. I need to see the ROI. And so that's why, we always recommend to providers that the outcome, value, ROI, time to value, that needs to lead the conversation. Don't blow me away with the number of agents that you have, right? I need to hear value and outcomes. And so I like this theme of, intake to outcomes, because I think that helps kind of drive that idea home. Yesterday was really good, I thought. There were a couple things that stood out to me. I liked John from Bolt. I'm going to use this in the future when he said, we can move 200 million people, but we can't move a purchase order. So I thought that was pretty clever. And then Hervé from Heineken, I thought he made a really great point when he was talking about their journey that ultimately led them to Zycus, which was, we started from the perspective of the end user. What does the user want? That goes to the user interface, of course, but ultimately, this is about adoption. And that comes up a lot when I talk to organizations that are evaluating new platforms. And I always ask, well, why are you moving? And there are a lot of reasons, but a common theme you hear is adoption. We did all this work and implemented, and we just didn't get the adoption that we thought we were going to get. So I thought I was really glad to hear Hervé make that point. And then lastly, before I get into my material, I had a conversation yesterday with someone, and what do you do? I'm an analyst. And he was too polite to say it, but I could see from his facial expression. It's like, what the heck do you do, right? What is an analyst? And so essentially an analyst, I spend my days talking to providers and users and writing about things that are happening. And the analyst community is pretty tight. You heard two great sessions yesterday from my fellow analysts, Magnus and Jeffrey. We are competitors, but we're also friends. So I'd like to start with this slide because it kind of shows the State of the Union. And this is something we tracked that's published last year. This will be refreshed in a few months. The takeaway from this slide is that, if this was a State of the Union address, the State of the Union is good. The procurement application space is vibrant, it's strong, it's growing. And think about that. We have this space is 40 years old. Sleepy old back office procurement, right? Well, those days are over. It's not sleepy old back office anymore. Procurement is cool. Procurement is a happening place. There is so much happening. There's so much interest in this space. The reason why the space continues to grow, we think there are a few reasons. First of all, the post-pandemic supply chain issues really elevated the role of procurement and focused on the need for, certainty of supply and risks and certainly pricing. And then the introduction of Gen AI kind of further caused a tremendous interest in the space, and that continues today. And so this is contrary to the popular narrative today that, well, what are we all doing here? Didn't you know that SaaS was dead, right? SaaS is dead. Well, it's not. And we increasingly we're spending so much of our time dispelling these popular narratives. Another recent example was, a subset of this space that I call procurement applications is buy-side CLM, right? And whenever, 3 weeks ago, the Claude Cowork legal plugin was released. Oh my goodness, like a wildfire. CLM is dead. Oh, this is going to kill CLM. And I rushed to publish something along with a peer of mine who's an attorney, and he's our IDC's resident legal tech expert. And we published our thoughts on that. And the takeaway is that, if anything, that the release of that product is probably a net positive for the CLM space. And I won't go into all the reasons here, but just these narratives continue to come and come and come. And another narrative is, well, S2P is dead, right? In the future, we're just going to have these headless agentic platforms. And why do I need S2P? Well, that thing that we call S2P today, it probably won't exist in a few years. It'll be called something else. I don't know what that is. But what we're going to have is an autonomous intelligence data layer, orchestration layer, that from which you conduct those activities and transactions, etc., that you do today in your S2P. I don't know what that's going to be called. Maybe intake to outcome. It'll be called something. I don't think we're going to be talking about S2P in the future. But so then the logical follow-on question is, well, what about the current providers in that space? So I'd say, well, I think some of them are going to thrive in that environment. I don't think they all will. but that's going to be contingent upon their ability to pivot, not pivot, but to infuse that agentic framework into their applications. And as I said, some certainly are going to thrive. So this function is not going away. I think we're going to call it something else, but it will definitely change. So the past 2 years I've published this. I actually increased the projected 5-year compound annual growth estimate. So just another sign that the space is healthy. No, I'm sure many of you could teach us more about AI than I can, and I don't pretend to do that. But I show this because I want to make 2 points. The first of which is AI was not born in November of 2022 when OpenAI released ChatGPT. AI has been embedded in procurement applications for a long time. I think the Merlin AI Studio came out in 2019, maybe. So AI has been with us. The other point I want to make is, history doesn't rhyme, but it repeats. During the dot-com era, suddenly every company was a dot-com. Well, today, every company is AI native. We're all AI native. I laugh at that because, the dirty little secret is that there are very, very few providers in the procurement application space that I would consider to be truly AI native. There's a very well-known provider that you go to their website and first thing you see, AI native. It's just like I just shake my head. But I mean, does that matter? Well, that's a marketing pitch, right? It could matter, but what matters more is, again, that agentic framework that makes a platform ready for this inevitable shift that we're going through right now. I guess I should carry my clicker with me. So, during the demo yesterday, the way we interact with our procurement application obviously is changing. Today it's table stakes. We're all used to, and we expect to see some level, some virtual assistant, chatbot, etc. And increasingly, those are not side windows. Those are embedded into the application. And I was watching the Anna Autonomous Negotiation Agent demo yesterday, and I just couldn't help but think, man, back in the days when I was a category manager, I would have given anything to have this. And increasingly find myself having those thoughts as I go through these demos. The future is undoubtedly agentic. I'll give another quick example of how just the tools that are available today are I think, fantastic. Back in the day, for a while, I was doing M&A support from a procurement perspective. So I would go in with my team, and we would help, company A buys company B, and they need help understanding all of the contracts that they now own, right? Do we assign them, terminate them, et cetera, et cetera? And the way this was done back in the day, and this was considered best practice, I kid you not, is I would hire a team of contract lawyers. We would put them in a conference room for 2 months, have them plow through hundreds, if not thousands of contracts. They would record their findings on spreadsheets. At the end of that, they would consolidate all that and give that to you, and here's our findings. That was best practice. That took 2 months and a lot of money. Today, with CLM applications, you can press a button and you can get that same thing in minutes, right? Just tremendous. So there's a cost to pay for that, right? But is there value? Absolutely there's value. kind of a busy slide. I apologize for that. This came out, I published this last fall. The numbers are less important than the trend, right? So the point of this is to underscore that the future is agentic. We're going from what we're used to today, our traditional interface. We are going to autonomous systems that ultimately, it is an agentic approach. And those numbers and those date estimates, Magnus made reference to this yesterday, in time is warped in the AI age. So those estimates, I think already, when this is republished later this year, are going to be, those years are going to be wildly accelerated. Things are moving so fast. So, but this is the future. This is where we're going already. I think we are seeing we are at the agent enhanced stage most commonly, and that's only going to continue. So what I was supposed to come up here and talk about, I'm finally getting to. The maturity model, AI maturity model. And there are a number of attributes to think about when considering this, and kind of, a natural extension of what you just heard from Tom. This is the point of a maturity model, just to give people a framework to think about how is my organization, are we ready for this inevitable shift, and where do we stand? And these are some of the attributes that underpin the development of a maturity framework. And the measurement areas are highlighted here, and I'll call out a couple of them. Process automation and efficiency. That's a really exciting space and functionality that we're seeing today, because we're going beyond just increasing cycle time, right, as being the end goal. With today's applications, we can take a workflow or a process and do a deep dive drill on not only knowing what the cycle time is, but graphically represent that, and to show where is the bottleneck, where does this get held up, what's the most common fault there, and do that drill in. And there's tremendous value in that. Decision intelligence. Historically, when we do our spend analytics, for example, that's a very static, backwards-looking process, right? The shift now is layering in that predictive element to not only identify savings opportunities based on historical patterns, but to layer in that future-looking view that says, hey, there's this geopolitical event happening and there's inflation here. So the system will flag and say, this commodity, we have an 80% confidence level that it's going to be markedly more expensive 6 months from now. So this should inform your negotiation strategy for that category. Just one example. Risk management and compliance. Your procurement practitioners, so how has procurement traditionally executed this task? It's with respect to supplier risk assessments, it is you send the supplier a spreadsheet, they fill it out, you get it back, you score it, you segment them, you categorize them, and then you take that spreadsheet and you put it in a file folder, and you say, I'm going to update this every year, and you probably won't. But it's very static, and it is wholly dependent upon the information that the supplier gives you. So we are transitioning to systems that are dynamic, they're real-time, they're leveraging real-world information, and they're not dependent upon the supplier for that information. It's that you can pull up for a given supplier and you have it right there in front of you. Okay, this is their current risk profile, and when you have those supplier QBRs, you're not waiting on them to feed you that information, but instead you are showing them the way that they are assessed based upon, things that are happening today. I'll talk governance, trust, and responsibility. You've probably heard there's this term that's kind of new to us, but you hear about explainability. I mean, what is explainability, right? So human nature is we tend to not trust the black box, right? What the output that black box gives me, how did it derive that? So explainability is the idea of getting inside that black box. And you see this sometimes when you use whichever platform that you may use, that will, you will insert a prompt and it will show you along the way is that, hey, we're doing this. We're leveraging this model. We're doing this. We're pulling in this information, and then it gives you the output. So that's an example of what explainability is. I think that's going to be increasingly important going forward. And then the last item there is actually Tom did a nice job talking about that, but it's the in our conversations with users, there's unquestionably tremendous hunger for AI, but a lot of people feel like organizationally they're kind of held back because they don't know what they're allowed to do, or they don't feel like they have free rein to conduct those pilots or organizational policies. So that's really important to have that forward-thinking organizational mindset that allows users to experiment and to explore. And so I do have slides for those measurement areas, and I have them here. I'm not going to take you through, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on all of them because, this is takeaway material that you're welcome to use and think about as you're looking at your organizations. But, it's a scoring of organizations on a maturity model from, level 1 being the least mature to level 5 being the most mature, along those 6 measurement areas that were on the previous slide. And because Zycus is such a nice host, I put in Zycus use cases for each of these areas that can give me an idea to think about the maturity for these given attributes, and what does that look like in practice? How can I help my organization advance down this maturity model? And just here's some examples of what it might look like. Process automation, again, examples there below. We are, without question, moving to a touchless world. Supplier onboarding comes up all the time, and that's one of those areas like Tailspin that I think 10 years from now, procurement practitioners will still be talking about the challenges of supplier onboarding. It seems to be this consistent theme, right? That supplier onboarding, it's just a perennial problem area. I talked about decision intelligence, really exciting use cases in this area. The predictive nature of what AI can provide for you, but it's also that the conversational interface that now we're quite honestly getting used to. And you think about, I think about back in the day as a practitioner, organization I was working at, we were using a legacy on-prem solution that, my goodness, there was nothing conversational about that. You had to be a coder. You had to know the exact prompt to do anything, right? And that's in our lifetime. That's not that long ago. And so the advancements are tremendous. I talked about risk management. I think there's tremendous utility here using the example that I gave you. I talked about explainability earlier, and this is one of the reasons why I really push back on that notion that the S2P space may be at risk in our agentic future, because it largely gets back to governance. If you think about, the S2P space has that domain expertise, and they know how to apply the guardrails. And I mean, the other thing they have that is a tremendous moat is they have the data, right? They have the data. And so all these agentic systems that suddenly now seek to leverage that data, in my conversations, providers are saying, okay, if you're going to bring your agents and you want to tie into my system, I want to help my customer. So I'm going to enable that, but there's a cost to that. So we see that in API calls. So we're going to charge you for that. And I think I'm going off on a tangent here. Apologies, but we think that this thing like API call revenue is going to start to be kind of a material source of revenue for those that have the data. So that data serves as a very powerful moat. And lastly, I talked about organizational readiness. So I won't belabor that. And I'm actually on time, which is, I usually go really long.